Have we got everyone? Let me. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you.
sir.
Clear? Okay. All right. So I'm hoping, let's see if we can do 2 systems probably today, and then we'll do some more later. Okay. Let's begin our session with Ummul Kitab Al-Fatihah. Okay, all right. Let's do with, should we do, let's do, let me think. Okay, let's do cardiovascular first. Let's discuss some cardiovascular conditions. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure whether I've discussed with any of you guys before, but it doesn't really matter lah. So let's see. Well, let me try set up the screens. Okay. If you can imagine, yeah, I am hoping you guys can see my drawings clearly. Again, as usual, it's not my drawings are not that clear punya drawing, but I don't really care. Sorry, understand why. Sorry. Okay, let's put this there. Let's put this there. Sorry, yeah. Let me adjust my screen. Sorry. I don't know why. Okay. If I can draw, what color is this? Okay. If you can imagine, this is your heart. This is your heart. You have 4 chambers, kan? To make it easier, I draw the lungs here. And this is basically your body lah. So heart, everything is inside here, and everything, your thorax is here lah basically. So when our body utilizes all the oxygen and there's gases exchange, and carbon dioxide is transported from the body into your into the heart via what vessel are this? Dia ada 2 vessel kan? So IVC and inferior vena cava and superior vena cava. Kan? It goes into your right atrium. Right atrium. From the right atrium, you have a valve here. This is your right ventricle. And from the right ventricle, you have this large vessel, large artery, which is a pulmonary artery. Whatever that goes away from the heart is artery. Whatever that goes away from the heart is artery, and whatever that goes into the heart is the vein. Into the heart vein, away from the heart is artery. And from your pulmonary, from your lungs, that you have 4 vessels. 4 vessels. This 4 vessel gets into your left atrium. Left atrium. What is the name of this vessel? This is your pulmonary vein, PV. From your left atrium, you have a valve there, and from your left ventricle, you have another big vessel, which is your aorta. It's one of the great arteries. So this is the normal circulation. Okay. Another element for you to remember is the formula. What's the formula for blood pressure? BP equals to anyone? Blood pressure equals to what's blood pressure? Come on.
PO times PDA.
I can't hear. Kuat sikit.
The output times PDA.
Huh? Cardiac output, yes. So cardiac output times total peripheral resistance, Total peripheral resistance. Wait, sorry, let me do like this. Total peripheral resistance. And cardiac output equals
Heart rate times stroke volume.
heart rate times stroke volume. So these are the parameters that affect your blood pressure and so on and so forth. And if you can remember, we have our cardiorespiratory center. So cardiorespiratory center dekat mana? Dekat pons kan? Cardiorespiratory center dekat our pons. That's where we control everything, our cardiovascular system. So dekat kita punya carotid body and aortic body, we have the receptors. Whenever the oxygen level is low, whenever the acidity is high, whenever the carbon dioxide is high, so the aortic body and carotid body will then send signal to the cardiorespiratory center. Whenever the BP is low as well, and then this will trigger. This will either increase your heart rate, adjust your heart rate, or adjust your stroke volume by adjusting the inotropic effect and so on and so forth. Okay. All right. So now let's see. If I put some ballpark numbers, again, these are all ballpark numbers. Maknanya it may not necessarily be finally true lah. Okay, so what is the normal aortic pressure? So kalau kita contohkan ni this normal aortic punya pressure. If you do angiogram, you'll get around this type of number. This is an adult lah, which is not possible to do in pediatrics, because pediatric the blood pressure are different according to age, different according to gender, and different according to the according to body size. So for adult, generally aortic pressure is around 100 to 120, and diastolic is around 60 to 80. This is in adults. How about LV pressure? Anyone can have any idea? LV pressure. LV pressure systolic berapa? Lebih kurang sama lah Systolic dia 100 to 120. How about diastolic pressure? Again, this is a ballpark. These are all ballpark numbers. So LV pressure usually around 5 to berapa? 5 to around 30 lah, lebih kurang. 5 to around 30. These are all again ballpark numbers. How about PA pressure? Tadi kita tengok AO pressure, aorta punya pressure. How about PA pressure? PA pressure berapa? So PA pressure lebih kurang I would say 60 to 80 systolic. Diastolic berapa? Diastolic tak tinggi. Diastolic actually around 15 to 30, lebih kurang. These are all ballpark numbers. So this is PA pressure. How about RV pressure? RV pressure? RV pressure around berapa? Kalau systolic pressure dekat PA is 60 to 80, RV berapa? Lebih kurang sama lah kan? 60 to 80. Diastolic? 5 to probably 20 saja. 5 to probably 20. Again, these are all ballpark numbers. Okay, let's see one by one. So, and these pressures, kan, you kena tengok macam ni. The left side, the systemic side, the blood pressure, the aortic pressure, this is aortic pressure, total peripheral resistance. So the total peripheral resistance tu maknanya all the resistance in your body. So kalau you connect the circuit, which is our peripheral circulation if you connect to a low resistance circulation. For example, you connect to a dialysis, you connect the peripheral circulation to a dialysis machine which is low resistant, kan? So the total net resistance will reduce. Cardiac output maintain, total net resistance reduce because it's a total resistance, kan? And if you remember your circuitry kan, dia ada apa? Dia ada different type of circuits, kan? So bila you connect a low resistance, the total net resistance will actually reduce. So BP dia akan low. So that's one of the reason why orang yang on dialysis, sometimes one of the problem is the BP will drop. Sama juga if you connect the systemic circulation ni to a very low resistance circulation, macam your placenta. So placenta is a highly vascularized punya structure, but it's very low resistance. So bila dia very low resistance, in a net dia akan reducekan the net total peripheral resistance. Dia akan the placenta itself tu will reduce the net total peripheral resistance. Tapi if you look at the right side, the right side ni, right side here, bila right side you are looking at the pulmonary. So instead of total peripheral resistance, the BP for pulmonary, BP pulmonary will be cardiac output times total pulmonary resistance. Total pulmonary resistance. Because we are looking at the total resistance in the lungs. Lung vessels and so on so forth. If you remember my neonatal lecture kan, macam mana the lungs are filled with fluid in utero, ada pressure and so on so forth. So you're looking at the total pulmonary resistance. Okay, now let's see. Kalau we put a hole here, you remember things move, fluid or anything, it moves from higher pressure to lower pressure. Things move from higher energy to a lower energy. Nature is like that, kan? Bila benda yang higher energy, dia memang akan move towards a lower energy. Macam heat transfer as well. From higher energy, it goes to the lower energy. Macam tu. Osmosis pun sama. Higher concentration, it goes to lower concentration. Kan? Okay, so if you look at here, we put a hole dekat dia punya between the ventricles, interventricular septum. Okay, cuba tengok dekat masa systolic ada pressure gradient tak? Ada kan? Masa systolic there's pressure gradient. Banyak tak? So 60, 80, 100, 120. So quite a lot. Kan? So masa systolic there is a pressure gradient. So masa systolic there's fluid shift, fluid movement from right ventricle to your left ventricle because of the from your left ventricle into your right ventricle because of pressure gradient, kan? So daripada left side dia pergi ke right side because of pressure gradient. Dia ada left to right shunt. Ini kita panggil left to right shunt sebab left higher pressure, right lower pressure. So fluid moves in systolic from left side to right side, left to right shunt. Left to right shunt tak cyanosis. Cyanosis kalau right to left shunt. Okay, we'll go about that later. So masa sini systolic ada shunting. How about masa diastolic? Ada shunting tak masa diastolic?
Tak ada.
Masa diastolic tak ada shunting because pressure gradient dia lebih kurang sama. Bila pressure gradient lebih kurang sama, there's not much shunting. Bila tak ada shunting, maknanya ada murmur tak? Because murmur are basically sound. Sound, what is sound? Sound is vibration, kan? Sound is vibration. Why we can hear sound? Because that vibration, kan? That vibration produces sound, that vibration is transmitted through the air into is concentrated by our ear pinna ni, external auditory meatus, they concentratekan those vibration tu. Kita punya function telinga kita ni, dia concentratekan, daripada besar ada kecil, so dia concentratekan those vibration and it causes the vibration of your tympanic membrane. Kan? So sounds are all just vibration, and sound can be carried either through air or it can be transmitted through solid such as bone, bone conduction, for example. Kan? If you remember your Rennes and Weber's test, kan? Or it can also be transmitted through fluid. Water can also transmit vibration. Sebab tu dalam submarine semua dia boleh still dapat echo and so on and so forth. So these are all vibration. So sama juga when a fluid moves through a constricted opening, dia akan produce turbulence. So kalau fluid flow dalam straight line, kan? This straight line, this is laminar flow. Laminar flow. The moment you introduce a obstruction, kan, dia flow macam ni, laminar flow. Bila laminar flow, sometimes tak ada sound, tak ada disturbance, dia straight je, very silent. The moment you introduce an obstruction, what happens after this? There'll be turbulent flow. Kan, dia beri turbulent flow. There'll be turbulent flow. Macam pipe lah, macam pipe kan. Kalau you buka pipe itu besar-besar, kan, keluar daripada kepala pipe itu satu you buka, kan, kepala pipe tu you buka. Dekat kepala pipe tu, bila you ketatkan, you are increasing the resistance, kan. You buka besar-besar, so dia punya flow dia kalau straight, laminar flow. The moment you tekan dekat depan tu, dekat depan kepala pipe tu, kan, you introduce an obstruction, what happens after that? Apa jadi? Dia ada turbulent flow lah, kan. Flow dia ada lagi laju, ada some turbulent flow, then you can hear sound. The sound is faster. Flow dia laju. The velocity increases. Tapi if you imagine, kan, you nak isi satu baldi, kan. You ada baldi, you nak letak air dalam tu. You buka kepala pipe, you letak. Kan? Sekarang you tutup ujung depan tu. Bunyi lagi kuat tak? Bunyi lagi kuat sebab velocity naik, kan, ada turbulent flow, bunyi lagi kuat banding dengan kalau you tak tutup depan tu. Tapi volume dia beza tak? The volume, the speed of how fast you can fill in the baldi tu, sama ke berbeza? You tutup dengan tak tutup?
Beza.
Actually no, the same. You tutup ke tak tutup? You tutup sikit, you tutup banyak lain cerita lah, kan. Tapi kalau you tutup sikit, you introduce some obstruction, you increase turbulent flow, you increase the sound, but the rate at which you fill in the baldi tu is the same. The rate at which you increase the baldi tu is the same, as long as the volume, the flow from the kepala pipe tu is the same. Faham? So the volume is the same. The flow rate differs. The velocity differs. Tapi volume is the same. Faham? Okay. So, and then if you can imagine, kan, if you introduce sikit the resistance, turbulent flow sikit. Turbulent flow kat sini je. Kat sini still laminar flow. Kalau you introduce yang besar, kan, yang besar macam ni, sikit je lubang kecil, turbulent flow dia banyak. Kan, as compare dengan kalau sikit, turbulent flow dia sikit. Lain semua still laminar. Sini laminar, sini je laminar. Yang lain semua dah jadi turbulent flow. So bila more turbulent, more sound created. Okay. So sekarang masa systole ada left to right shunt. Masa diastole tak ada left to right shunt. Masa diastole any shunt tak? Right to left, left to right? No. There's no shunting. There's no movement of fluid masa diastole. Movement of fluid only occurs during systole. Sebab itu in VSD, ventricular septal defect, sorry. Ini mas. Sorry, I have my kid here. Okay. Alright. So in VSD, you have systolic murmur. You have systolic murmur. Diastolic murmur ada tak masa in VSD? No, you don't have a diastolic murmur. Okay. What type of murmur? What type of murmur?
Consistently.
Okay. Satu. Dekat mana can you hear the murmur? Where can you hear the murmur? Kat mana?
Customer A.
Let me try and draw. Again, my drawing is very bad drawing. I don't really care. Okay. So, okay. Okay. If you see, this is the left ventricle. This is the right ventricle. Left ventricle, right ventricle. So, flow, turbulent flow tu created dekat mana? Dekat sini kan? From left to right. So, dekat sini. Sini. Here, this is where the turbulent flow is created because left side, left ventricle, right ventricle. Flow dia kan selepas pada dekat after the ventricular septum kan. So that's why you can hear the murmur is at the lower left sternal edge. Generally kan in your cardiovascular examination ni dia kan ada apical, apex. Ada apex, lower left sternal edge, lower right sternal edge, which you tak dengar apa-apa sangat, lower left sternal edge, and then upper left sternal edge, upper right sternal edge, and subclavicular. Kan? Anything below, anything lower is always pansystolic. Anything lower is always pansystolic. There is no other type of murmur. Systolic. There is no other systolic murmur except pansystolic murmur. Pansystolic murmur je. Anything lower is always pansystolic. Anything above usually is ejection systolic. Anything upper usually is ejection systolic except for upper subclavicular. So upper right sternal edge, upper left sternal edge is always, upper is always ejection systolic. You should never hear pansystolic murmur at the upper side. Faham tak? Lower is always pansystolic, upper is always ejection systolic. Okay, boleh hafal. Hafal yang tu pun cukup lah. Okay, boleh. I don't usually prefer you hafal. I prefer you understand. Huh? Okay. Alright. So, murmur dia is over the lower left sternal edge. Sebabnya left to right shunt. Right ventricle dekat sini. So, vibration dia created dekat situ. Vibration dia created dekat sini. Vibration dia created dekat sini. So, that's where the vibration is created. Okay. Alright. So, kita dah tahu site dia dekat mana. Sekarang kita nak tengok masa bila. Okay. What causes the first heart sound? What causes first heart sound?
The closure of the mitral and tricuspid valves.
Alright. So bila ventricle contracts, bila your ventricle contracts kan, it pushes fluid macam ni kan. So it pushes the mitral valve to close. Valve bila pressure macam ni kan dia close kan. So contraction of the ventricles causes closure of the semilunar valves. Not semilunar valve, closure of your mitral and also your tricuspid valve. Kan? So closes the mitral and tricuspid valve. So that's first heart sound. What causes the second heart sound? What causes closure of the second heart sound?
Closure of the semilunar valves, the aortic
So,
and pulmonary.
Bila your ventricles relax, kan? Bila your ventricles relax, so valve dia macam ni. Bila your ventricles relax, kan? Bila your ventricles relax, it sort of creates a reduce pressure dekat below here, atas ni higher pressure, so ia akan push in, so it closes the semilunar valves, kan? It closes the semilunar valve. Kenapa? What causes this? Relaxation of your ventricles. Your ventricles relax, pressure kat bawah ni reduce, pressure kat atas ni naik, then it closes the semilunar valve. Okay. Sekarang, if you have a hole here, masa bila dia mula shunt? Is it after the closure of the valves, before, or same time dengan valve closure tu? Masa bila mula? Huh?
Same time.
It's around the same time. Sebab bila ventricle close, it pushes fluid here to close the valve. It also pushes fluid here. So it's the same time. So that's why you will not hear the first heart sound. You tak dengar first heart sound. So masa bila jadi second heart sound? Second heart sound bila ventricles starts to relax. Ventricle relaxes, pressure here reduce, pressure atas ni naik, and it closes the semilunar valve. Masa bila stop the shunting? Also at the same time. Because everything happens at the same time, you will not hear the first and second heart sound. So that's why you have a pan-systolic murmur. You hear zip, 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 rather than dup, 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 dup. You'll hear zip, 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 because everything happens at the same time. You will not appreciate the first and second heart sound. Okay, clear? Clear, clear? Okay, now let's look at what happens to your BP. So again, if you look at systolic, if you look at the again, when you measure blood pressure, when you feel pulse, you are measuring the BP at your pulses, kan? Okay, what happens to your pulses? BP, cardiac output times TPR. Okay, sekarang ni, originally, the pulse pressure is here 100, 120, 60 to 80, because all the blood from the left ventricle goes to the aorta. So sekarang ni, your left ventricle are pumping to your aorta and also pumping to the right ventricle. What will happen to your blood pressure? What will happen?
Reduce.
Reduce. So is your body happy with it?
No.
No.
Oh, our body is not happy. So what will our body do?
Pump harder.
Dia akan buat few things. Yang pertama, dia akan increasekan cardiac output. How to increase cardiac output?
Increase heart rate.
Increase heart rate, increase stroke volume. Increase heart rate jadi apa? Jadi tachycardia. Kan? Tachycardia, heart rate increase. That is why among the signs of cardiac failure is tachycardia. Kenapa jadi tachypnea? Among them is because the center yang control tachycardia to heart rate is the same center. Bila dia trigger your increased heart rate, also triggers your increased respiration. You'll have tachycardia, tachypnea, because the cardiorespiratory center is the one that fires up. So that is why, okay, bila kita stress, bila kita marah, when we are angry, our heart rate increase, our breathing rate also increase. That is why the Prophet tells us, Islam teaches us, bila you are angry, kan, apa you buat? Daripada you baring, daripada you berdiri, if you are standing, you sit down. Because when you sit down, you are increasing your venous return. Bila you increase your venous return, what happens? You are increasing the end diastolic pressure. If you remember your Starling law, kan, when you increase the end diastolic pressure, when you increase your end diastolic volume, when the ventricles, the end diastolic volume increases, your heart pumps harder. So you are increasing the stroke volume. Bila you increase the stroke volume, nak maintain BP, your heart rate will go down. Faham tak? So that's why when you're standing, you sit down, you increase your venous return, increasing your end diastolic volume, increase the stroke volume to maintain BP, your heart rate will go down. If you're sitting, you should go and lie down. That's what the Prophet tells us. Bila kita lie down again, by pressure, because of gravity, you'll increase your venous return, increase end diastolic volume. By Stalling law, increase end diastolic volume, your heart will pump harder. Kan? You increase your inotropic support, your heart will reduce the heart rate to maintain similar cardiac output. So that's what the Prophet tells us. And also another method is when you to maintain your sanity, kan, Islam teaches us apa warattilil Qur'ana tartila. You read Quran with tartil. With tartil. Tartil means what? You breathe in and then you read slowly. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So you read slowly. You tarik nafas, you hembus nafas slow-slow. That's what the breathing technique. If you remember, kan, kalau you in psychiatry, in psychology, among the technique to reduce stress is breathing technique. If you're angry, you breathe in. You tarik nafas dengan hidung. You breathe through your nose. And then you breathe out slowly through your mouth. Breathe in. Breathe out slowly through your mouth. This is a evidence-based stress reduction strategy. If you're stressed, you do breathing techniques. Even the non-Muslim are teaching the same method. Islam teaches us warattilil Qur'ana tartila. So that's why if you are stressed, you go and read Quran because it's the same technique as breathing technique. You breathe in through your nose, and then you breathe out slowly. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. That's the breathing. That's the same thing. When you regulate your breathing, when you regulate your respiratory rate, you are regulating your cardiorespiratory center. You can reduce your heart rate as well. When you reduce your heart rate, you will be less angry. And not just that, when you breathe out slowly, what you are doing? You are increasing the rate of gaseous exchange. Kan? So you are subconsciously you are increasing your PaO2 and you are reducing your PaCO2. So our body, when we detect, oh, our CO2 is reducing, so now we need to reduce our respiratory rate, we need to reduce our heart rate as well. Kan? That's our body response to increasing PaO2 and reducing PaCO2. Kan? By reducing heart rate and reducing respiratory rate. So that's how we can get calmer. That's how we can gain tranquility, tranquil. Kan? By doing all this. So that's the greatness of our religion. Okay. All right. Fine. So now our body is not happy because our BP is now reduced because left ventricle now pumps blood through the AO and also to the right ventricle. So apa body buat? Dia pump harder, increase stroke volume, increase inotropic effort. Maknanya apa? The muscles need to work harder. And what muscles do bila kita bagi dia work harder? What happens to your muscle when you ask them to work harder?
Hypertrophy.
Dia bulk up, kan? Your muscle, kan? Your muscle ni? Your biceps, kan? If you work harder, kan, your biceps will bulk up. So sama juga dengan your ventricles. If they work harder, they'll bulk up. Dia akan jadi besar, dia akan jadi sado. So bila dia jadi sado, you'll have left ventricular hypertrophy. Left ventricle ni dekat mana? Dekat mana left ventricle? Left ventricle ni dekat tepi sini. Bila left ventricle dia besar, you akan dapat cardiomegaly. Sebab apa? Alamak, sekejap. Drawing tak cantik. Dia sebab left ventricle dekat sini, so you akan dapat left ventricular hypertrophy. Alamak, let me draw a bit cantik sikit. So left ventricle hypertrophy. Sebab left ventricle tempat dia di di tepi sini. So if you do X-ray, you'll see left ventricular, you'll see cardiomegaly, increase cardiothoracic ratio. Why? Sebab left ventricle tempat dia dekat situ. If you compare dengan kalau right ventricle yang besar. So kalau right ventricle dekat sini, kalau right ventricle yang besar, it will push the heart now. Okay, kita draw balik So, kalau right ventricle yang besar, what happens is dia akan push sebab left ventricle dekat bawah sini. Right ventricle dekat bawah sini. So, dia akan push the apex ni naik atas. Apex ni akan naik atas. Sebab right ventricle kat situ. So, you'll have a boot shaped heart. Sebab right ventricle duduk di bawah. So, that's why if you have right ventricular hypertrophy, you'll have boot shaped heart. Kenapa boot shape heart? Sebab right ventricle di bawah. Dia akan push everything up. So apex ni naik atas. Apex ni asal dia dekat bawah. Dia dah push up the apex. Faham tak? Clear? Clear so far? Okay. Satu, your left ventricle akan besar. Sebab left ventricle sekarang kena pump both side. Kan? Okay. So now, what happens to your PA pressure? What happens to the lungs now? Your lungs usually only get blood from your PA, from your right ventricle. Now, the lungs are getting blood from the left ventricle as well. So, right ventricle asalnya dia seorang ni daripada RA, RV, daripada RV dia naik atas. Sekarang ni, dia dapat blood daripada RA, dia also dapat blood daripada left ventricle. So more fluids are going into your PA and into your lungs. So what happens to your lungs now? What happens to your
Pulmonary
lungs?
hypertension.
Belum lagi. Sebelum hypertension. Sebab our body can regulate hypertension.
Edema.
So it will become overloaded. It will become overloaded. Fluid overload. So lungs asalnya dia dapat fluid daripada RV. Sekarang dia dapat fluid daripada RV and also LV. So the lungs will have fluid overload. So bila lungs jadi fluid overload, apa jadi? That's why when you do chest X-ray, you'll see fluid overload, hyperemic lung fill. Hyperemic lung fill. Hyperemic lungs. So hyperemic lungs maknanya that's what you see. You get fluid in the fissure, curly B lines, upper lobe diversion, bed wing signs. These are all signs of fluid overload. Signs of fluid overload. Okay, faham? So those are the signs that you can see on chest X-ray. Cardiomegaly, increased cardiothoracic ratio. Kenapa? Because the left ventricle position dia dekat tepi tu. Bila left ventricle position dia dekat tepi tu, you'll get the cardiomegaly. Lepas tu apa lagi? Because the lungs are now fluid overloaded, what you'll get? You'll get the signs of fluid overload, which are the hyperemic lung fills, bed wing signs, upper lobe diversion, fluid in the fissure, curly B lines, and so on and so forth. Okay, clear? Clear? Okay, now what will happen when you feel sekarang ni? What will happen when you feel the pulse? Will there be any difference? Will there be any difference tak? Pulse. Your pulse will be the same sebab your body will try and maintain the blood pressure. Kan? So pulse sama je. Okay. If you have this problem lama 10 tahun, 20 tahun you have this problem. You do not control your blood pressure, you do not control you don't do anything to this. What will happen to your fluid? Lungs ada fluid overload dekat lungs. If you leave this be macam ni, you biar je. Lung fluid overload. What will happen to the pressure in the lungs? You start to have pulmonary hypertension. You start to have pulmonary hypertension. Sebab sekarang ni, bila your lungs are filled with fluid overload, so your body will try and reduce the lung pulmonary vascular resistance. Kan? vasodilatation dekat lungs kan. Semua dia try nak reducekan the pressure. But at some time, your body cannot compensate anymore. Bila your body cannot compensate, you'll have high pressure in your lungs. Bila high pressure in your lungs, you'll have pulmonary hypertension. Bila BP sini tinggi, what happens to this dynamic now? You'll have bilateral shunting. Kan? Shunting tu is both side. Ada blood pergi daripada left to right, ada blood pergi daripada right to left. And at some point, your pulmonary BP will be higher than your systemic BP. Kan? Bila pulmonary BP higher daripada systemic BP, because why? Because your body cannot compensate anymore. You cannot reduce the pulmonary pressure anymore, and you cannot increase the heart, the left ventricle is dilated enough, it's already hypertrophed. The left ventricle cannot pump harder, and the pulmonary vessels cannot reduce the resistance further. So now the systemic BP goes down, the pulmonary BP goes up when it is more. So sekarang apa jadi? You'll have right to left shunt. Left side is pink blood, is red blood sebab oxygenated. Right side is blue blood, is deoxygenated blood. Carboxyhemoglobin is blue, oxyhemoglobin is red. Kan? So left side is pink blood, right side is blue blood. So bila ada right to left shunt, what will happen? You'll have cyanosis. You will have cyanosis. Again, this is when decompensation happen. When your body cannot compensate. What do we call this? What do we call this? Eisenmenger syndrome. So Eisenmenger syndrome. So maknanya right side will have high blood pressure daripada left side. What are among the signs? So you start to have right ventricular hypertrophy. Apa lagi you dapat? Apa lagi sound yang you boleh dengar? Anyone? You'll have palpable P2. Sebab sekarang bila the right ventricle, bila your pulmonary valve sini kan, you have S1 S2, basically P2. S1 is first heart sound, S2 is second heart sound. But S2 tu dia ada A2 and P2. So A2 mana closure of the aortic valve. Aortic valve doesn't affected sebab the pressure is sama je, dia reduce pressure pun. Tapi but the right ventricle, right valve, the pulmonary valve now, it closes because the pulmonary pressure is high. Bila pulmonary pressure is high, dia close forcefully. Sebelum ni pulmonary pressure normal pressure. Sekarang ada pulmonary hypertension. Bila pulmonary hypertension, the pulmonary valve bila dia close forcefully. You'll have loud P2. Loud P2 and even palpable P2. If you put your hand on the upper right sternal edge, you can feel the P2, closure of the P2. You have palpable P2. Palpable P2, loud P2. Instead of you dengar dup-dup macam tu, you can dengar dup-dup. Itu. So you can feel very loud P2. So loud P2 and also palpable P2. This is a hallmark of pulmonary hypertension, which is the Eisenmenger syndrome. Okay, faham tak so far? Clear? Okay. Jelas tak?
Jelas.
Alright, so now let's do something more. Okay, now, how to do it? Okay, alright, so now let's do this. What happens if you have this? tube that connects from your PA to your AO. What is this? PDA kan? PDA. PDA, patent ductus arteriosus. It connects between PA and AO. Okay, cuba tengok. Systolic, ada shunting tak? Ada shunting tak systolic?
Ada.
Ada, sebab 60 to 80, 100, 120. So in systolic, there is a shunting. Masa systolic. Masa diastolic, ada shunting tak?
Ada.
Ada, 15, 30, 60 to 80. Kan? Masa systolic ada shunting, masa diastolic pun ada shunting. Masa bila shunting ni happen? Masa closure of the valve ke? Before closure of the valve ke? Masa bila? Masa bila shunting tu jadi?
After.
Shunting occurs continuously. Continuously. There is no time yang tak ada shunt. There's no time yang tak ada shunt. Even if the heart decides to stop sementara, kan? Mula-mula pun there's still shunting. Sebab the pressure gradient is there. There's always pressure gradient. Kan? Masa systolic, masa diastolic, masa heart, masa valve close, masa valve buka, the shunting continuous. There's always pressure gradient from the left side to the right side. So there's always a left to right shunt in PDA. So that's why you have a continuous murmur. Kenapa continuous murmur? Sebab the pressure gradient is always there from left to right. So there's always pressure gradient. That's why you have a continuous type of murmur. Okay. Bila in systolic, what happens? Apa yang create pressure tu? The pressure is created actively. Maknanya ada contraction, ada pushing factor. Your ventricles is pushing. There's an active pushing of fluid. So it's an active process. So active process that creating the pressure. Masa diastole is just what is remaining pressure gradient. What is remaining there? So it's a passive type of pressure. So shunting pun, mana lagi banyak shunting? Masa aktif ke masa pasif? Masa aktif lah akan lagi banyak shunting kan? And then the pressure gradient pun sebenarnya nampak lagi banyak. Kan? Walaupun difference dia lebih kurang sama. Kan? Tapi sebenarnya dia punya pressure gradient dia is higher. Kan? So there will be more shunting. If you look at ni kan, bila ada turbulence flow apa semua, turbulence flow will be created more bila you have active pressure. Nanti bila kita discuss respiratory, kita akan tengok benda yang sama lebih kurang. Kan? So bila active pressure, the turbulence flow created is more. Bila turbulence flow created is more, the sound is louder. Maknanya in PDA, the murmur tu dia tak sama systolic dengan diastolic. Faham tak? The intensity of the murmur, the volume of the murmur is different masa systolic and masa diastolic. Because masa systolic is an active process. Diastolic is a passive process. The murmur is louder and more intense dekat systolic. That is why kalau tadi kita tengok VSD, murmur dia zhup, 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 zhup. In PDA, what you'll get is a murmur dia continuous but different intensity. This is what we call as continuous machinery murmur. So dia bukan continuous murmur, it's a continuous machinery murmur. Sebab murmur dia macam mesin. Bukan missionary murmur. Ramai student sebut continuous missionary murmur. No. is nothing related to machinery. It's a machinery, macam mesin. Mesin. Kan? Continuous machinery murmur. Macam tu. Faham? So PDA macam tu. Kalau you tengok tadi kan I cakap pasal VSD tadi kan. So VSD kan, bila VSD dia defect dia besar, turbulent flow dia sikit. So in VSD the murmur is softer bila lesion dia besar. Bila lesion dia kecil, VSD dia kecil, turbulent flow dia banyak. Sebab tu VSD the murmur is louder bila the lesion is small. In VSD, the murmur is louder bila lesion is small. Lesion is big, murmur dia soft. Kenapa murmur dia soft? Sebabnya turbulent flow created dia tak sebanyak. Okay, kita go back to PDA. So PDA kita dah faham kenapa jadi continuous machinery murmur. Okay, sekarang let's look at what happens to our pulse now. So, what happens to the BP? BP drop ke apa? BP drop ke apa?
Bro.
BP drop. So our body happy ke tak happy? Tak happy. Our body will compensate. How our body compensate? Dia akan increase stroke volume, increase cardiac output. Increase cardiac output macam mana? Increase heart rate, increase stroke volume. Increase heart rate, you dapat tachycardia, tachypnea. Increase stroke volume, you have left ventricular hypertrophy. Left ventricular hypertrophy, you buat X-ray, you akan nampak increase cardiothoracic ratio, cardiomegaly. Kan? What happens to your lungs? Sekarang sama macam VSD sebab lungs will be fluid overloaded. You'll have upper lobe diversion, bad wing signs, curly B lines, fluid in the fissure. And these are all signs of heart failure, signs of fluid overload. This is in PDA. Kan? What happens to your pulse now? So sekarang ni pulse kan, systolic BP naik. Tadi dekat VSD kan, systolic BP maintain ke drop? Systolic BP maintain, VSD What happens to your diastolic BP in VSD? Diastolic BP maintains the same. Okay, sekarang ni if you look at PDA, what happens to your systolic BP? Systolic BP asalnya drop kan, tapi because of all the changes, your systolic BP maintains. Systolic BP maintains. What happens to your diastolic BP? Diastolic BP reduce. Kenapa diastolic BP reduce? Sebab masa diastole ada shunting. Masa diastole ada shunting. Masa diastole ada blood from left side goes into the right side. So shunting tu happens during dystole. So bila shunting happens masa dystole, so diastolic BP reduce. Systolic BP maintains, diastolic BP reduce. Systolic BP maintains, diastolic BP reduce. So bila diastolic BP reduce, what happens to your pulse now? So ni your vessel. Ni masa diastolic. Ni masa systolic. Kan? So ni masa diastolic, ni masa systolic. So your pulse macam ni naik, turun, naik balik, bukan, salah, sorry. So your pulse kan, this is your ni vessel contohnya kan, your pulse ni masa diastolic, masa systolic, masa diastolic, masa systolic, masa diastolic. This is what you feel with pulse kan. Sekarang ni systolic BP tukar color. So systolic BP sekarang, systolic BP maintain, diastolic BP reduces. Bila diastolic BP reduce apa? So what is this? You'll have bounding pulse. Sebab the distance tu daripada diastolic dengan systolic itu lagi jauh. Nampak tak? Ini masa ni normal, ini masa in PDA. Sebab diastolic BP reduces. Faham tak? Nampak? As compared dengan contohnya kan, kalau contohnya in early sepsis. In early sepsis, what happens? Your systolic BP reduces. Systolic ni kalau ni baseline kan, ni baseline. Kalau in sepsis, baseline sama, diastolic BP naik dulu. Diastolic BP naik, your systolic BP turun. So now dia jadi macam ni. So this is a steady pulse, narrow pulse volume. This is a wide pulse volume, wide pulse pressure. Jadi wide pulse pressure, narrow pulse pressure. Wide pulse pressure, narrow pulse pressure. Wide pulse pressure, you get bounding pulse. Bounding pulse. Sebab wide pulse pressure, narrow pulse pressure. Wide pulse pressure, narrow pulse pressure. Wait, sorry, let me check. Wide pulse pressure, you get bounding pulse. Narrow pulse pressure, you get steady pulse. Okay, jelas tak kenapa you dapat wide pulse pressure, kenapa you dapat bounding pulse? So in PDA, among the signs is bounding pulse. Okay, jelas? And then, sekarang ni, you have a limb. You remember daripada aorta ni, daripada aorta, you ada you punya upper limb, lower limb apa semua kan? Sekarang ni, you angkat upper limb ni. You angkat upper limb. Apa jadi to your shunting? You angkat against gravity. Bila you angkat your limb against gravity, there will be apa? There will be more shunting. Blood from your upper limb will go in diastolic tu, dia akan lagi banyak turun. So there will be more shunting. So what will happen? Now you'll get collapsing pulse. Now you get collapsing pulse. Bila you increase against gravity, there will be more shunting. There will be more regurgitation of blood daripada your limb yang you raise tadi against gravity. So that's why you get collapsing pulse. You get collapsing pulse. Okay, jelas tak so far? Jelas tak PDA?
Jelas.
Yes. Okay, now let's look at another system. Okay. Now let's look at valves. Let's look at valve. Okay. Satu-satu. Pulmonary valve. Pulmonary valve. Kalau pulmonary valve tu, kita pergi aorta dulu lah. Okay. Aorta. Kalau kita ada dua kan, sama ada stenosis ataupun regurgitation. Stenosis or regurgitation. Okay, jap. Sebelum kita pergi valve, one thing I didn't talk about is atrial septal defect, ASD. Kenapa I didn't talk about this? Because the pressure between right atrium and left atrium is almost the same. So usually there's not much shunting. Bila not much shunting, there's not much pressure gradient, not much shunting. Sebab tu dia tak cause much problem. Sebab itu if you look at contohnya macam antibiotic prophylaxis kan, kalau PDA, kalau macam VSD, you kena bagi antibiotic prophylaxis. Kalau nak buat dental clearance, nak buat procedure, you kena bagi antibiotic prophylaxis. Tapi ASD, you tak payah bagi. Sebab apa? Sebab there's not much shunting. Kita bagi antibiotik untuk prevent spontaneous bacterial endocarditis. SBE prophylaxis, infective endocarditis. Endocarditis. Endocarditis maknanya bila ada high pressure, high volume, dia senang injure the endocardial lining. Bila dia injure the endocardial lining, infection kuman senang masuk kat situ. That's why you get endocarditis. So, bila in VSD, pressure tu laju. So, dia senang injure the endocardium. Tapi in ASD, sebab pressure gradient dia tak banyak, kalau ada shunting pun sikit je, so there's not much injury to the endocardium. So, you don't need to give SBE prophylaxis in ASD. Okay. Okay, now back to aortic valve. Okay, valves ada stenosis and regurgitation. Okay, let's look at aorta. Kalau aorta tu stenos, what happens now? Aorta stenos. Aorta jadi ketat. Bila aorta ketat, maknanya difficult for your left ventricle ni biasa dia pump against a set pressure. Sekarang you introduce a resistant, masa systolic ada resistant dekat aorta. So blood daripada left ventricle susah nak masuk aorta. Kan? So what happens now? Masa systolic ada shunt tak? Systolic ada turbulent flow created tak? Masa systolic ada turbulent flow tak? Adalah sebab
Ada.
you are causing a obstruction. Kan? Aortic stenosis to causing obstruction. So masa systolic you have turbulent flow. You have turbulent flow. Dia ada shunt. Dan blood ni daripada ventricle dia pergi naik ke atas. So where can you hear the murmur? You can hear around this region. Kalau you letak tangan kat situ, you akan rasa apa? You akan rasa apa? What can you feel? Bruit. You can have bruit. Kan? Lepas tu dia pergi ke carotid. You can hear carotid bruit as well. You can hear carotid bruit as well. Okay. So okay. So PS, ini aortic stenosis. What happens to your pulse sekarang? What happens to your BP? Systolic BP apa jadi?
Drop.
Systolic BP drop.
Eh.
Systolic BP drop. Sebab apa? Sebab blood slow sampai dekat aorta. Body happy tak? Body tak happy. Apa body buat? Increase inotropic. Left side akan pump harder. How much can it help? Dia akan help sikit je. But the systolic BP will still go down. Obviously, left ventricle akan hypertroph. Tapi systolic BP will still go down because obstruction dia dekat situ. There's obstruction. So systolic BP goes down. What happens to your diastolic BP? Diastolic BP remains the same. Kan? Ni normal, sekarang dia dekat sini. Systolic BP goes down, diastolic BP remains the same. So you dapat narrow pulse pressure. Bila narrow pulse pressure, you get steady pulse. You dapat steady pulse. This is aortic stenosis. I got aortic stenosis for my professional exam back in 2006. 2006, I got my professional exam in UIA. I got aortic stenosis. I feel the radial pulse, tak rasa radial pulse. Ulnar pulse pun tak rasa ulnar pulse. Cuak dah. Rasa dekat dia punya femoral pulse, I can't feel femoral pulse. Rasa carotid pun tak rasa. Bangkai betul masa tu. Allah. So it's very difficult. So that's aortic stenosis. Okay, sekarang how about aortic regurgitation? Masa systolic ada bunyi tak? Masa systolic?
Ada.
Tak ada. Sebab apa tak ada? Sebab apa tak ada? Sebab memang kerja dia lah. Memang kerja aortic valve tu masa systolic untuk buka kan? So masa systolic tak ada bunyi. Masa diastolic ada bunyi tak?
Ada.
Ada. Sebab apa? Sebab masa diastolic sepatutnya aortic valve tu tutup. Masa diastolic. Sekarang ni masa diastolic dia terbuka. That's why ada regurgitation. So you'll have diastolic murmur. You will have diastolic murmur. Okay. Sekarang what happens to your pulse? What happens to your pulse? Masa systolic naik ke turun? Masa systolic. Systolic naik ke turun? Masa systolic theoretically tak affected. Tapi you remember sebab masa diastolic, okay, first thing, masa systolic theoretically tak affected kan? What happens masa diastolic? Naik ke turun masa diastolic?
Naik.
Apa sah naik pula? Masa diastolic sepatutnya dia tutup kan, sekarang dia terbuka, aortic valve terbuka. So masa diastolic blood daripada aorta ni turun masuk balik ke left ventricle. So blood masa diastole ada patah balik blood daripada aorta turun balik ke left ventricle. So diastolic pressure akan drop. Faham tak? Diastolic pressure akan drop. Sebab apa drop? Sebab masa diastole ada blood yang patah balik masuk ke dalam heart. Bila blood patah balik dalam heart, kita rasa pulse tu, kita rasa pressure tu dekat periphery, dekat radius. So pressure masa diastole reduce sebab ada blood patah balik. Sama macam PDA tadi. Kan PDA kan? PDA kan diastolic pressure turun. Ingat tak? Confused ke tadi? Masa PDA, if you remember PDA kan, blood masa diastole ada patah balik. Kan? Bila blood patah balik, so diastolic pressure turun. So sekarang ni bila blood ada patah balik, diastolic pressure akan turun. Kan? Diastolic pressure akan turun. So sekarang ni blood masa diastole patah balik masuk ke left ventricle. Systolic asalnya sepatutnya static. Sebab masa systolic nothing happen. Masa diastolic blood pressure turun. Tetapi if you remember Starling law. Apa Starling law kata? Starling law kata when you increase the end diastolic volume, when you increase the end diastolic volume, what happens to the inotropic effect? Your heart will pump harder. Bila you increase the end diastolic volume, your heart will pump harder. So, bila masa diastole, your left ventricle ni dapat blood daripada left atrium kan? Left atrium masuk ke left ventricle. Sekarang ni left ventricle dapat balik blood daripada aorta juga. So, you increase the end diastolic volume. Bila you increase the end diastolic volume, what happens? Your heart will pump harder. Bila heart will pump harder, your systolic BP pun naik. So systolic BP naik, diastolic BP turun. So what happens now? Your systolic BP naik, your diastolic BP turun. What happens now? You'll have more bounding pulse. Lagi bounding daripada PDA. You'll have more bounding pulse. You angkat tangan against gravity, you'll have more collapsing pulse. Faham? Jelas? Punya banyak bounding dia tu, you tengok dekat capillary bed, dekat your nails, you akan nampak dia pulsating. This is what we call as Quincke sign. Dia punya carotid pulse ni, dia akan bounding sangat. Tersangat bounding, punya bounding dia punya pulse dia sampai kepala pun bergoyang. That's why you have head nodding. Sebab bounding sangat. Semua pulse, semua bounding. Pam, 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 pam. So you akan dapat head nodding. Trozier sign. You letak stethoscope dekat your femoral ni. You get a pistol shot murmur. You'll get renal bruit. All because of the super bounding pulse. Because of the wide pulse pressure. Okay. Clear? Jelas?
Faham.
Jelas ke tak jelas?
Faham.
Jelas.
Jelas kan?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's look at another. How about pulmonary valve? Okay. Kita mula dengan stenosis kan. So pulmonary stenosis. Pulmonary stenosis. Problem dia masa systolic ke masa diastolic? Pulmonary stenosis.
Systolic.
Masa systolic. Sebab apa? Sebab masa systolic, blood daripada right ventricle nak pergi ke atas. Tapi sekarang ni dia ada obstruction. So, dia akan susah nak pass. Kan? So, your BP dekat PA ni akan reduce lah. Kan? Tapi ada cara nak rasa ke? Tak adalah kan? So, BP dekat systolic BP dekat your PA ni will reduce. Kan? So now, apa jadi to your right ventricle? Your right ventricle akan pump harder. Bila your right ventricle kena pump harder, what it does? Dia jadi hypertroph. Bila dia hypertrophy, because right ventricle ni tempat dia di bawah, dia akan push apex ni atas. So dia akan jadi boot shape heart. Dia akan jadi boot shape heart. Boot shape. Apex dia dekat sini. Asalnya apex dia dekat bawah sini. Sekarang apex dia naik atas sini. Dia akan jadi macam ni lebih kurang. So that's a boot shape heart. Boot shape heart. Macam boot lah, macam bukan boot yang kita pakai tu, macam boot yang orang Netherlands pakai tu. Dia ke atas. So boot shape heart sebab dia push the apex dia naik ke atas sebab right ventricle dekat bawah. Sebab itu kalau you dapat right ventricle punya MI, you akan dapat inferior MI. Sebab right ventricle tempat dia di bawah, inferior. Faham? So inferior MI is basically right ventricle punya MI. Okay. So you nampak macam tu. So right ventricle akan hypertroph. Lepas tu satu lagi, sekarang ni fluid yang pergi ke lungs reduce. Reduce fluid pergi kat lung. So now what happens to your lungs? Your lungs will be, yang ni tadi hyperemic kan? Dia jadi apa? Oligemic. Oligemic lungs. Sebab tak banyak fluid pergi kat lungs. Sebab itu, in right-sided problem, macam PS ni, macam PS, pulmonary stenosis, you will not get cardiac failure. In PS, you will not get cardiac failure. Sebab apa? Sebab dia oligemic lung fail. So you won't get the hyperemic lung, you won't get the fluid in the fissure, you won't get the curly B lines, you won't get the cardiomegaly. Sebab apa? Sebab it's a right ventricular hypertrophy. Critical PS ni bila? Critical PS kalau memang very minimal, dia almost macam pulmonary atresia. That's critical PS. So not compatible with life. Okay, PR dah masa not significant sebab dia you won't feel the pulse, you won't get much problem. So PS yang main punya issue. Okay, alright. So far clear tak? Clear so far?
Clear.
Clear.
Ada banyak lagi nak discuss ni. I want to discuss about TGA and some other condition as well. TOF. Tapi I don't have time. Kita kena continue. Let's if you're okay, ada soalan tak? I'm hoping we can arrange another session untuk kita discuss remaining cardiovascular ni. And if we have time, we'll discuss about respiratory and also kidney as well. Yang tu yang important lah. Yang lain semua simple je. Okay, clear tak so far? Any question? Any soalan? Any question? Ada soalan? Tak ada? Clear? Alright, fine. If there's no question, I hope it's been useful. Again, some people dia hafal. VSD jadi macam ni, ASD jadi macam ni, PDA jadi macam ni. For me, it's better for you to understand. If you understand how things work, if you understand it in the terms of the calculation, if you understand why this murmur happened, why the pressure gradient, then you will actually understand it better. If you understand the basics, physics behind everything. Okay, clear now? All right. So I think if there's no more question, I hope it's useful. I hope it's beneficial for you, not as medical student, but useful as doctors later on. I'm not teaching you how to become good medical students. I don't care. I'm not teaching you how to pass exam. I don't care. Passing exam is not important at all. What important is for you to become good doctors later on. That's the only thing that matters. Failing exam is okay. It's okay to fail exam as medical student, but it is not okay for you to fail as a doctor. It's better for you to fail now as medical student rather than you failing as a doctor later on. If you fail as a medical student, you can improve. You should improve. But if you fail as a doctor, you will kill people. So that's what not acceptable. So I'm not teaching you how to become good medical student. I'm not teaching you how to become, I'm not teaching you how to pass exam. I'm teaching you how to become good and safe doctors. That's it. So I'm hoping this knowledge is useful for you later on as doctors. Okay, I think that's it. Let's end here. If you're interested, remind me, we'll arrange few more sessions later on. Okay, all right.
Thank you,
Okay.
Doctor.
Assalamualaikum
Thank you.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, doctor.